Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Russell Glasser.
This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, man.
I did it.
You did.
You did your thing.
Dude, I appreciate it. Russell, it has been forever.
I know.
I mean, not just being on air, but it's been a couple months since I've seen you. Before we get started, how have you been?
I have been good. I am still working from home. I'm a senior engineer now at a place I won't name, and I'm not trying to be cryptic. If you check out my Twitter feed, you will instantly deduce where I work. I just don't like to be a spokesperson for that company.
Sure enough.
But I really enjoy my job. And I work next to my wife, Linnea, who also is working at a different game company.
Wow.
And my son is starting at community college later this year. So all things considered, things are going fine considering the situation of the world in 2022.
Yeah, it takes so much just to make something like this happen, making sure that we're, taking care of ourselves and that we're, taking care of each other, because on this show, we want to have people live and in person, and post-COVID, that's a big deal. And so knowing that, we're bringing in people who are going to be good, and not make anybody else and crew members sick is really important. So
right. And I mean, you say post-COVID, but I mean...
true. I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Post, like, everything... Yeah.
Right. We're still in a situation where, like, a lot of people are ignoring that it still actually exists, and a lot of companies are saying, like, get people back to work, even though things have not really gotten safer. But I mean, that's a whole other thing.
It is, and I know that. Well, I mean, okay, so just so people who are watching know. When we started the show, I had reached out to Russell and I said, hey, Russell, if you ever want to be a guest host, you just let me know. Right. I'd be happy to have you on. I guarantee you that there are people who miss you. As evidenced by the live chat, there are so many people who are excited to see you.
Yes.
I know, right?
It's good to see you all.
And we have cultivated an incredible community. I mean, we still have trolls, yeah, but I'm really, really proud of it. And when you reached out to me a few weeks ago, you said, Eric, there's something that is so on my mind, so important that I really want to talk about it, and I was like, abso-freaking-lutely. And so this is that time. This is a platform, and I'm happy to share it. What did you want to talk about?
Well, more generally, I guess I wanted to say it's been a few years since I did any shows, and it's kind of fine because it was super stressful, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Didn't disappear from the face of the earth or, find religion or anything, just decided it was enough. But... I was used to having a platform to just rant about stuff, and things have piled up a little.
Yeah.
And the particular thing that is important to talk is, I feel,
dude, I totally get it. So you're saying that what's really important right now that you want to have that platform to talk about is...
In particular, I'm real peeved about what's going on with Roe versus Wade in the country right now. And I understand that you guys generally do not talk about that topic very much.
Well, the thing is, I know that there are people who have practiced it a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've practiced counter-apologetics. I've practiced application of epistemology. When it comes to specifically talking about abortion, I want to do it right. And
right. And of course, the best way to talk about abortion is with two guys.
Yeah. Yep, of course.
Sarcasm.
Well, yeah, and there is that piece as well. How much should I be talking about, and how much should I, and what is the obligation as someone with a platform to use that platform to the best of my ability? Because if I'm not using that platform, again, so there's just so many many layers to it. But ultimately, if it's a call that I feel like I can take, I take it. And if it's not, then I've resolved to hold off until I have people on who I think could handle it in a better way than I can. I think it's recognizing my limitations.
And I hope I can. And also I do not consider myself the expert on this.
No.
And I mean, certainly it's not an issue that affects me as directly as some issues, but I think it's also important for people to speak up against oppressed groups.
Agreed.
Who are more insulated from the actual effects of it.
And I'm glad you're here, man. So the stage is yours. Okay. I'm going to be right here typing in the names of all of the callers.
All right.
So we can take callers afterward. But it's all you, man.
So I'm going to back up for a sec. Oh, and of course, since it's been a while since I've done a show, I'm going to go ahead and commit the cardinal sin of looking at my phone while the show is going, because I've got a rough outline here of what I want to say.
That's okay.
I hope this goes well.
You got this, man.
So we need to talk. But first, I want to talk for just a sec about an issue that was always important to me when I got into atheist activism, which was the treatment of science in schools. So I dealt a lot with creationists back in the day. And I even gave a short presentation at a school board hearing here in Texas, which went pretty well. But basically, evolution, contrary to what a lot of people think, has basically been settled science for a couple of centuries now. I mean, the details have shifted around as our understanding has improved, but it was basically understood science. And for decades in the United States, it was also settled law, because you want to teach actual science to people in schools. You don't want to teach religious nonsense from a particular religious point of view. And so it was just understood that evolution is science and creation is not. But that didn't stop a lot of people from trying over and over again in little pesky ways. I thought of it like a whack-a-mole game where they would keep trying to promote creationism in school. I mean, a long time ago, they felt like they could get away with actually outlawing evolution, and then that didn't work out. So they were like, all right, well, you can teach evolution, but you also have to teach creationism, which is not science. So we don't. And then they tried to come up with clever ways in the 90s where they could be like, we're not talking about a religious point of view. We're talking about intelligent design, which is just a scientific thing that you also have to teach. And then that didn't work out.
But the controversy, Russell.
Right, teach the controversy.
Why aren't you teaching the controversy? Are you just afraid of the other sides of this opinion that are equally valid?
No, because I'm not going to teach just various mythologies about the world as if they were science. I'm not going to teach that, the gods baked some cookies and some of them came out different colors and then they threw them to all corners of the earth and then, those were the different races. That is a thing that some cultures, that at least one culture has believed and taught.
Wait, really?
I don't remember the details, but I do remember telling this story before. Contact
skepticgeneration@gmail.com. If you know the cookie hypothesis, please let me know.
Right.
All right, go ahead, sorry.
So, I mean, the fact that something is settled does not stop people from trying to poke at it if they have very serious religious beliefs about it. And that's going to bring me to the thing we actually need to talk about, which is abortion and Roe versus Wade. It has been settled law in the United States since 1973, when the Roe versus Wade case was passed. And that's great. It has led to increased safety and increased options for women who just want to live a happy, productive life in the way that they choose. And it's so much been settled law that conservative Supreme Court justices who were being confirmed to the Supreme Court have felt the need for a long time to lie about their positions and obfuscate or deflect talking about the topic, which has come up in every single Supreme Court hearing repeatedly. And I'll get back to that in a minute. But I will just go over again what Roe versus Wade is, which is that abortion was legal in some states but not others before. And the Supreme Court basically ruled in '73 that there's going to be a national standard where you cannot deprive women of their rights in any state. And the rule was basically that in the first trimester, it's always legal. If you want an abortion, you can get it. In the second trimester, it is conditionally legal, dependent on some issues with risks to the mother's health. And in the third trimester, it's generally illegal, but with exceptions for extreme health risks. So that's basically the way it's been. Is it a perfect law? No. But it's a very complicated, fuzzy issue, and it's certainly better than no protections at all. So states could not individually ban abortion, but just like with creationism, and I did have a point in bringing that up first, they have tried. And they've tried by looking for little cracks in the system where they could maybe attempt to make it like extremely difficult or a nuisance or stall people long enough that they would leave that window where it was actually legal. And of course, we live in Texas, which is basically one of the ground zero states where they've been trying to change this thing. So one of the popular tactics is to basically ignore Roe versus Wade and go ahead and say, in our state, you can't have an abortion unless, you're within the first 6 weeks, which is tough because, first of all, it violates what the Supreme Court has already said. And in the second place, a lot of people don't know they're pregnant until at least 4 weeks. I don't have every bit of the science in front of me.
I do know for a fact that many people who own uteruses don't have regular cycles. And the idea that everyone would have a regular cycle to be their indicator that they might be preggers is ridiculous.
Right.
And so just taking that into account, I think, is a fundamental misunderstanding of medicine.
Exactly. But just side point, the vast majority of lawmakers are still men. Gender equality has gotten better in some ways, but it's still mostly men. And a lot of these guys have the luxury to actually not care to learn the science.
Yeah.
Another tactic that a lot of states have gone after is basically stalling. So they say, all right, you can have an abortion, but there's like a waiting period once you find out you're pregnant. Your parents need to sign off. Yes, if you're underage, then you have to get parents' consent, even if they're religious.
Yeah, if you're married, your spouse needs to sign off.
Right.
There's that whole fucking weird
and there's some kind of mandatory counseling requirement in some places.
Where they... sorry, go ahead. I'm pissed off too.
You go ahead.
Yeah, where they sit you down and they try and shame you out of getting an abortion, including up to and including flat out wrong literature, literature that absolutely does not show what fetal development looks like, does not show what just anyway. Go ahead,
Right.
Russell.
Yes, trying to shame and embarrass people, but also trying to run out the clock. So we've already got these draconian restrictions on when you can get an abortion. And then they're like, all right, you have to wait a week and you have to get this many counseling sessions. And by that time, it is even more likely to be too late for some people. Yet another tactic that they like to use is just coming up with bullshit arbitrary regulations for abortion clinics to follow, where it's like, you have to have like this many doctors on staff or stuff like this, where it's basically, all right, you can have an abortion technically, but good luck trying to find one.
Yeah, you have to have admitting privileges into a hospital, for instance.
Right. Which requires, in some states, even before the Supreme Court thing, people have been forced to, like, they've shut down the last clinic in the state in a few states, which means you can only have an abortion if you have the means to actually travel somewhere and miss work for a certain amount of time. So that sucks.
You mean you can't just pick up and go to another state for a couple of days?
I'm not sure I can do that. I mean, I can. I've got enough. I've got enough vacation time, but I mean, there are things I'm working on where I wouldn't want to let my schedule slip.
And that is the most privileged of those options. Most people don't have vacation time. They don't have the ability, or even if they did, they may be taking care of someone or have children already, or whatever the case is. The idea that you can just pick up and go is this weird idea that, the assumption that everyone could do that is nutty.
Yeah. So you have to travel, you have to take time off work, you're forbidden from doing things in various unconstitutional ways. And the thing about these nonsense laws is that they're against what is supposedly already Supreme Court settled law. But in order to fight those, you have to take a lot of time and expense and lawyers to actually stand up and deal with those things. And then eventually, at least for a while, they would maybe get all the way up to the Supreme Court or a lower circuit court. And the circuit court would say the obviously true thing, which is, hey, you can't have this law. It's unconstitutional. But they managed to waste a whole bunch of time and stop people from exercising the rights that they have to have an abortion. So I mentioned earlier that every Supreme Court justice now routinely lies or evades the question. And so I'm just going to read a few direct quotes. During Sam Alito's hearing, who was appointed by Bush, he said, Roe v. Wade is an important precedent at the Supreme Court. It was decided in 1973, so it has been on the books for a long time, which is a technically true statement, but it intended to convey the impression that he's not going to tamper with it, when Alito himself was the guy who has written this screed that is, as far as we know, a pending decision by the Supreme Court. Neil Gorsuch, the first Trump appointee, Senator Dick Durbin was talking about that the Supreme Court had held that a fetus is not a person for the purposes of the 14th Amendment due to the 14th Amendment's due process clause, which is a key foundation of Roe versus Wade. And he asked, do you accept that? And Neil Gorsuch said, that is the law of the land. I accept the law of the land, Senator. Yes. Brett Kavanaugh, Susan Collins talked a lot about a private conversation she had with him where he was like, I consider Roe versus Wade settled law. Susan Collins, he told me that personally, and I believe him. And, then of course we have Amy Coney Barrett, who was kind of the most the biggest religious zealot of them all, or at least the most open about it. And so she was a little less vague about it, but still kind of evasive, saying, Roe is not a super precedent, which is a legal term, because calls for overruling it have never ceased. But that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled. No, just this very coy thing that has become standard of kind of dancing around the question. So there have been these unconstitutional things that dance around this settled precedent. And then a couple of months ago, there was a leak, which was a draft opinion by Alito, who was basically writing a response to a case that would say, yeah, the protections of Roe v. Wade are basically revoked. That hasn't happened yet. And of course, immediately as soon as people started discussing this travesty of justice, conservatives tried to turn this into a discussion about how appalling it is that somebody leaked a Supreme Court draft.
Oh, no, that's the most dangerous part of that information.
Right. As opposed to the fact that these rights are probably on the verge of being revoked, and it's very sinister and bad for women and men living in the United States. So I'm just going to say a few things that are pro-abortion, and I'm not even going to mess around with pro-choice. I've always thought of abortion as something that is basically in the same category as, let's say, chemotherapy, which is nobody wants chemotherapy.
Yeah, people aren't lining up to get in the queue to, I'm going to get an abortion today. That sounds awesome.
But if you have cancer and you need chemotherapy, you should damn well be able to get chemotherapy. And there aren't any groups that are trying to take this right away or say, I'm pro-choice of getting chemotherapy. But there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable about talking about the fact that abortion is good, actually. And I don't mean it should be mandatory for everybody who's going to have a kid. I don't mean like we shouldn't have any more babies. I mean, if you are pregnant and you don't want to be, you should be able to stop being pregnant. That's really basic.
Or you could just bring a child into this world with parents who don't want them.
Right, there's that.
Yeah.
And it's not life-ending. I mean, I am aware that a lot of people were born to parents who don't want them, and they're still glad to be alive, and that's fine.
But it's an unneeded suffering thing.
Yeah. Right. And talking about unneeded suffering, a statistic that I looked up is that something like 1 in 8 pregnancies just normally end in a miscarriage, which is a big concern when you start getting to the point where abortion is actually like illegal and prosecuted, and suddenly you arrive in a situation where if somebody has a miscarriage, they are immediately considered as a suspect because this has been redefined as a case of murder. So something that's actually very common, which is to just lose a pregnancy, we can get to the point where this is one example among many, but in October 2021, an Oklahoma jury convicted a Native American woman of manslaughter for miscarrying her pregnancy after 15 to 17 gestational weeks. And there's that vague range number because, again, nobody knows exactly when a pregnancy starts.
Yeah. Just moving on from that, in the South, there was a woman, Southern Texas, because we're in Texas. Right here in Southern Texas, there was a woman who was arrested on suspicion of getting an abortion. Currently, there are 2 women who were, and I was just reading this earlier today, in California, who are being charged for they both had miscarriages, and they're being criminally tried.
Right, and this is becoming more and more common because in Texas, they have been one of the main states thanks to that Governor Bastard Abbott.
Yeah.
Sorry, am I allowed to talk about like specific political positions?
Well, so here's the thing.
Nonprofit?
No,
Okay.
we own this show.
Yeah.
We own this show.
All right.
You can say shit, fuck, damn. That
Yeah.
said, this topic is going to get this video hella demonetized.
Oh, really? Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's worth it. We talked about what the responsibility is when it comes to a platform. This video is not going to be monetized.
Okay.
The clips where we talk about abortion, if we take callers and do anything about that when it comes to abortion, is going to lead to a drop in income for the channel. And guess what? That's fucking worth it.
Right.
So you can, absolutely. If you call for violence, Russell, I will tell you to stop and possibly tackle you out of your chair.
Okay, I won't do that.
But that said, no, you're good.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that it's costing you.
This is, again, the responsibility of a platform, right? That's it.
And I mean, really, like I said at the top, that's that's what I'm here for. I am so annoyed that there are so many things that I already rant about on a regular basis within my own home. You know, this is a topic that's important and is going to, in extreme cases, cost a lot of people their lives over a long period of time. And it's something people are very shy about bringing up. And I just want to talk about it a bit.
That's totally understood. Anything else before we move on to calls?
Almost. I mean, running out. There are just a few more things that I want to say is that pregnancy itself is dangerous. It's more common than people think about to actually just naturally die in childbirth. And we are not social Darwinists who are like, well, they weren't fit enough to survive having kids, so they didn't deserve to live. In a just society, we try to help people survive and thrive as much as possible. In the 1800s, as many as one in 1,000 pregnancies resulted in the woman dying, and that is 1 in 1,000 pregnancies. But of course, people were having a lot of kids a lot of the time in those days, which meant that your odds of being a woman and not dying in childbirth were, not great.
Yeah.
I mean, not that most women died in childbirth, but an uncomfortably high number of them did.
Yeah, no, if you're pumping out 12 kids, in your life, round that down to 10, that means that 1 in 100 women, if, you have that kind of family size, if you cut that in half, which I think is absolutely reasonable, that would mean 1 in 200, which is still freaking terrifying.
Right. And I'm going to say a thing that also doesn't come up a lot in this politically charged discussion, but it's important to acknowledge. Sex is fun.
Hell yeah, it is.
And having fun is not something that needs to be punished with a requirement that you either upend your entire life having a kid and raising them for 18 years and the massive expense of it. I'm somebody who has done that once. And it is a huge difficulty, which I gladly went through, but that does not mean that I would wish it on everybody, especially if they did not intend to make that choice. And I don't want people who think sex is fun to be roped into starting a family and have extremely increased risk of death, or in this new case, being prosecuted for something that really has been constitutional for decades. So I do not have an answer to the situation that we find ourselves in. I just want to say the Supreme Court is really unrepresentative right now. you know, there was a lot of shenanigans when Justice Scalia died, and Obama should have been able to appoint another Supreme Court justice, and instead he got blocked and delayed.
For like 6 months.
And then Trump came in and rammed through 3 justices as quickly as he could, including Amy Coney Barrett.
Within a week.
In a week. After he had already lost the election. So everything that Mitch McConnell and other Republicans said about what the standards are for appointing a justice, they were lying.
No,
they knew they were lying.
Yeah.
And they're proud and smug about it. And that hurts people. So in conclusion, fuck the Supreme Court.
As long as that is our right to be able to say it, we can absolutely fucking say it.
Yeah. Please keep all this in mind the next time an election comes up, because they are important.
Yeah. I'm just watching all of our international viewers with their jaws on the floor going, what is this dystopian shit? And for people who are already in tune and going, oh my gosh, I already know this. Good. But if you didn't know this and it's pissed you off, fucking good. Do something about it. Find out what's going on in your area. Get involved. It's not just voting, right? Voting is fantastic, but that's a first step. There's more that you can do. Get involved in your community.
Right. And me coming to your show and ranting about it is just not enough compared to what I should be doing. But I'm older and tired and busy, and this is something that I know how to do.
It's a step, and not everybody knows how to do it. And if we can encourage other people to who otherwise would not have, then good. Actually, just kind of as an aside before we dive into calls, recently has I think they've put it out. They might not have yet. They've been building a website that if you want to get involved, if you want to get active, you can just click it and it'll give you an idea. It's really, really cool. Once V finishes it, I'll see if we can put it in the links under this video. And also any links or resources that you want, we're going to make sure that we put it in the description for this video after the show as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me a platform to yell about this.
Of course. All right. So we've got a whole bunch of calls.
Okay. And I want to say we don't have to take all or even mostly calls about abortion because I've gotten it out of my system a bit, but we can take some.
We might take one. You want. I do want to be able to monetize a couple of videos.
Sure. So I mean, we could consider the topic over.
Potentially, there's somebody who's really pissing me off in the call screen.
Right.
But let's not take that person just yet. Instead, why don't we start with Steve in New York? Steve wants to talk about the increase of atheists going into more ritualistic atheist groups like the Satanic Temple, and kind of wants our opinion about it.
Are they?
Steve, you're live with Eric and Russell.
Hey, Eric. Hey, Russell.
Hello.
Russell, been a long time. Watched you on the other show. Missed you.
Thank
Eric,
you.
It's been a while. Called in a couple times before.
Cheers.
Last time I called in, me and V kind of double teamed you, so I figured I'd give you the home team advantage on this one.
Out of context, that is a fantastic statement. I'm all about that.
Especially with the last comment that you made before we hung up. So I wanted to bring that up. That's one of the reasons why I didn't call. I had to cool down a little bit after that one.
All right, so hit us. What do you got?
So I was told not to name specific names, but there have been some higher, well-known atheists that have been joining the Satanic Temple, other organizations like that have specifically are specifically atheists, but have a lot of ritual. And you and I had a disagreement on the importance of that, especially when it came to my own side of secular paganism, and whether or not it has some utilitarian value to it. So I wanted to kind of go back and forth on that a little bit, because I think you kind of, as far as I know, disagree with the entire concept.
No. Russell, if you want to jump in, just let me know. But in the meantime, I'll give what I can here. I think that when it comes to secular groups, it doesn't matter Like if basically when I think about Satanic Temple, I think of a lot of really sarcastic atheists who are getting shit done. And the getting shit done part is the part that really matters to me when it comes to being a secular pagan or, you know, a non-believer. You know what? There are a lot of benefits to ritual, and you get ritual out of a lot of things. A lot of people have a ritual out of making their coffee in the morning. That's one of the examples V uses all the time. And it provides stability, and it provides a level of comfort in your life that you can depend on, which is fantastic. When it comes to specific belief systems, the only thing that I want to make sure of is that when people see that you're practicing whatever faith tradition you might be practicing, that you're being clear that, hey, you know what? I get this out of it. I'm not propping up superstitious beliefs. I'm not propping up magical thinking. What I'm doing is taking part in a cultural activity in the same way that cultural Jews will celebrate, you know, different holy days. And that is absolutely okay. What do you think, Russell?
So I'm probably not representative here because I've been basically not involved with organized atheism for
about 4 years.
For about
3?
4 years, yeah. And in a lot of ways, I was tired and burnt out about it. And I understand that that is not the case. It wasn't the case for me for a long time. So being a part of an organized group is a fine thing to do, and power to you. I always saw the Satanic Temple as a little trolly. And I mean, of course it's trolly, but I also saw it as a little juvenile, and I've never been somebody who likes to make points mainly by trolling, as I hope you could tell from my discussion at the top of the show. If something's on my mind, I like to actually say it. And messing around with trying to backdoor things in by saying, oh, well, we just want to erect statues to our sincerely held beliefs, ha ha ha, just so that we can show you how dumb laws about allowing religious iconography is. Like, I can see the value of that, but I don't. But it feels a little empty to build the entire organization around being trolly like that.
I mean, they're getting a whole lot more done than a lot of atheist groups.
Sure.
But maybe that just says that we got to step up our game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that there is significant value to those, like, for example, the Baphomet statue that they were erecting up. There is that cultural significance of a symbol to rally behind. Yeah, there are definitely things that are going to be problematic with that, but I think that's very much a part of the human psyche that I'm not quite sure that we can get rid of these icons, these cultural signifiers that we have behind some of these ideologies. For example, I venerate Fenrir in a lot of my stuff, which to me is a very symbolic thing to fighting tyranny and fighting against the oppressive chains that bind us.
So you support it as a symbol, but you don't support it as like a literal mythological figure that walks around and live. It's sort of like venerating Luke Skywalker as upholding value, even though you know he's not real.
I think there is a difference in venerating something like Luke Skywalker to something a little bit more ingrained in the cultural aspects of who I am as a as a pagan. There may be a way to argue for or against that. I'm not saying I'm completely correct on that point, but I definitely think that there's more significance to this cultural mythological icons than to just take like comic book movie book characters and using them in the same way. Again, there's probably arguments against that. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I personally think that.
I mean, I would say that the argument against that is give it 200 years. I think that the mythology that's being created today is what's going to be repeated in, so long. And I think that it could be that it has this significance to you because it was this popular at some point. You know, it was the MCU of its day several hundred years ago, when it was, you know, written and shared out. I mean, for something to have a significance in your life, I don't think that it necessarily needs to have an validation from another. I mean, I'm not trying to poo-poo you here. I'm trying to say that I think that if somebody is getting benefit from the Luke Skywalker, you know, Jediist, you know, philosophy, then I guess all the power to them. I've met dudists who get their freaking religious philosophy from the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
they're some cool dudes.
All that said, like, I'm just saying the reasons why I'm not into those things, but that, you know, in general, I feel like if you're into it and it's not hurting anybody, then you do you, man.
Yeah. What do you think?
Right.
What do you think, Steve?
Well, I think this is a topic that would require a lot more in-depth philosophical and ethical conversation than we have time for.
I know, which is why you need to come to Texas at some point or someday.
You're gonna make a New Yorker come down to Texas? You're really gonna make me do that?
He doesn't like the heat.
That's my.
Okay, well, don't make. Okay, fine. Don't make me come to New York. How about next time I'm up on the East Coast, you just meet up, we'll have a beer.
All right, beer, scotch. Got to do the scotch.
Gin and tonic if we're going hard liquor, my friend.
All right.
You can have scotch with V. All right, we got to get on to the next call.
Next time I call, I do want to. There was a topic before on another call about debate bros, and I think I could make a case for actually the support of debate bros.
Oh my God! Yes, you need to. Well, Taryn. See, you're just waving the stake. All right, Steve, we got to get on to the next call. Thank you for calling in.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Be safe.
You too.
All right, nice talking to you.
You know, it's, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like us being able to find and talk to each other is just fantastic. Okay, let's move on. Joe in Kansas is going to be our first our first believer. And it says that the topic is agnosticism and standards for evidence. If an agnostic's standard for evidence is impossible, are they really agnostic? Oh God, hey, oops, Gohan, I grabbed the wrong person. I'm going to pop you back in the queue.
No worries.
Just let the live chat stew on that for a second. Joe in Kansas, you're live with Eric and Russell.
Hi, Eric. Hey, Russell. Awesome to see you on again.
Thanks. Awesome to hear from you.
So, hit us. What's this about agnosticism, and how are you approaching it?
Yes, this was a conversation that I had with an online buddy just about a week ago that made me scratch my head, because we were talking about standards for evidence, and he is a agnostic atheist, and we were discussing standards for evidence, and the topic that we got to was Jesus, did Jesus rise from the dead after 3 days? And so many, different religious people like to, make reference to the Bible, and hundreds of people claimed to see him, and after he rose from the dead, and but of course that's all from the Bible, so this is circular reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a story where I met 5 million people, and they all saw me pull my head off like the headless horseman.
Right.
And, yeah.
Right. But so as we were discussing that, we were discussing a standard for evidence, and what he described that was his standard for evidence was just crazy to me, because obviously the phrase, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence kind of fits into this conversation. But as we were discussing it, he said he said, if I was really going to believe that, that Jesus, was crucified and died and was dead for 3 days and then rose from the grave, he said, I would have to see, in person, I would have to see a coroner, do a full autopsy of him and show that, his brain had, developed full necrosis, and then be able to show after the fact that, when I was able to look at the brain necrosis and say, yes, that is brain necrosis, and that person is 100% dead, and then 3 days later, then see that same person up and walking around like it was no big deal. And he was very adamant.
Yeah, did they do that when their grandparents died, just to be sure that they were dead? That seems kind of weird.
And the thing that it was, because when he said that, it just blew my mind, and I clarified. I said, "That's the only thing that would convince you?" And he said, "Yes, that's that's my standard for evidence." And it was just, it's crazy, because what he effectively said was, until someone invents a time machine, I am never going to be convinced of this.
Well, let's see what we think. Russell, what's your take? What would convince you that Jesus died and rose from the dead?
So I'm a software engineer.
I knew you were going down this road.
I'm going into a digression, but I've been thinking a lot and reading a lot about basically how information is processed and how it gets to us. And I think that we're always trying to form conclusions out of a limited amount of evidence. I'm going to say a limited amount of information. I know at this point in my life that I am never going to have 100% of the information that I need to make a decision. And yet we have to make decisions all the time. We have to vote for a candidate when we haven't really studied every little minute detail of all their positions in their lives, but you do the best you can with what you've got. Sure. And when your agnostic friend says, I need this level of verification to believe anything, I don't believe him. Because he's alive and walking around and doing stuff and not completely paralyzed by indecision at all times. Now, I mean, I totally support and agree with this idea that the evidence that Jesus died and then rose from the dead is just bad.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I feel like a God who puts that level of emphasis on the idea that everybody has to believe this nonsense thing could do better if he felt like it. And I don't buy the idea that it's somehow a good idea to take that sort of thing on faith because that makes you a better person somehow. I think faith is a shitty way of making decisions. And you take the amount of information you have, which is that people don't ever seem to die and raise from the dead. And it's okay that if something that extraordinary happened, maybe God could hop on a message board and provide some pics, or it didn't happen, or something that would be better than the incredibly bad information that we have right now. So I don't have an exact answer, although I feel like if an all-powerful being wanted to convince me of a bunch of things, it wouldn't be that hard to show me that he was super knowledgeable about things that are hard to know, and then just tell me stuff at that point.
Okay. Can I take a? I'll take a
you
stab.
go ahead.
I am so.
And again, I'm going to be out of practice at all this.
No, I think that's just fine. Joe, actually, do you want a chance to respond to Russell before I hop in?
I like the kind of what you're aiming for, and part of the thing that made that when I was having that initial conversation so crazy to me was that was that obviously the amount of evidence, in heavy air quotes, that there is to say that Jesus rose from the dead is barely qualifies as evidence at all.
Right.
But if somehow someone found Roman documents that gave a lot of information and said Jesus of Nazareth and gave a bunch of information, and it was able to all be confirmed that this is all legitimate information from the Roman Empire at around this time and all of this stuff, like that wouldn't necessarily be enough to immediately convince me and be like, yep, Jesus rose from the dead, but it would definitely get my attention.
It would be a start. I mean,
right.
Records of somebody dying, when the Romans killed somebody, they took really, really good records, and there are a lot of pieces to that just aren't brought up. I can't help but bring up that. Did you know that there's a zombie apocalypse that happened there too? There's a whole zombie scene. Did you know that?
I think, yes.
I'm blanking on which book, but the idea is that after Jesus rose,
it was one of the Gospels. I think it was like 500 people also rose from the dead along with Jesus, or something like that.
Which
I mean, they didn't call it zombies.
No. But it's because the Savior needed to fulfill prophecy, and in the prophecy, the elders who had died were going to come back, and Jesus needed to fulfill that prophecy. And yet, you would imagine that people who were responsible at the time for writing things down, right? I mean, Flavius Josephus. You think Flavius Josephus, who wrote down when to change your freaking sandals, wouldn't have brought up a goddamn zombie apocalypse? Or
you think they would have been paying attention?
Yeah, you think Pliny the Younger or Pliny the Elder would have found out on the grapevine that something really crazy happened 2 decades back? Like, that is so wild that once you start seeing that there's that, then you start pulling the thread on the sweater, and you keep pulling the thread, and at least for us, when it comes to supernatural claims, the entire sweater becomes unraveled. I don't care that somebody died, or was killed by, if somebody named Yeshua ben Yosef was died or what was murdered by the Romans. A lot of people were. That's not the part that we're trying to, that's not the part that we have an issue with. It's the whole supernatural rising from the dead thing that we kind of want to talk about. And so, evidence for one, even if it was there, isn't evidence for the other.
Right. And for me, I've actually, I mean, speaking for myself, I've actually gotten to a point where trying to confirm this extremely spotty story has just become so uninteresting that I don't think about it much of the time, which is another reason I'm not on these shows all that often anymore.
I don't know. Maybe when I do it for as long as you've done it, I might cool off, but right now I still geek out about this all the time.
It was one of my biggest geek topics.
Okay, and by the way, when Russell gets on a geek topic, it's fantastic. Like the premise. I'm a programmer and dives into it. This is a normal thing with Russell, and it's fantastic. I've learned more about programming with Russell. But Joe, is there anything else you wanted to go into or respond to with this before we move on to the next call?
I mean, just having that conversation, it really made me scratch my head, and even. The one thing that was granted when the conversation was being had is that even if it could be even if it could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, so to say, that Jesus was crucified and all of this stuff and was dead and then rose from the dead 3 days later, even if that could be proven, it also still doesn't follow that, oh, and also he's, son of God the Father.
Well,
the two things don't logically follow.
No, and even the lesser things don't logically follow. Just, even if you were to prove that doesn't prove the bread and fishes story. That doesn't prove the water to wine story. That doesn't prove, exactly. Raising Jairus' daughter from the dead. It doesn't prove spitting in somebody's eye. It doesn't prove healing leprosy. It doesn't prove, all of those things aren't proven by even if that one was. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There was one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I know that we're giving you a lot of time, and I'm trying to, but there was one other thing, and that is that the way that your friend is talking about agnosticism is different from the way I talk about agnosticism, or I've talked to others about agnosticism, and so I might challenge them. The way that I've interacted with agnostics has been the claim that deities, right, and proving a deity, right, it's unknowable.
Sure.
It's not that we don't have enough evidence yet. It's not that it's that it is unknowable. And
right, there would never be enough evidence. Yeah,
and because of that, that has been kind of a through line for many, many agnostics. And I think that especially in the notes, when it says, could you be agnostic if there's not, a claim that you can falsify? Absolutely. How many times have we spoken to people who think that they, receive their information from the Platonic realm? They reach through the ether every time they grab an apple, because that apple is taking part in the fundamental appleness of the perfect apple, and what the how do you test that? And yet I'm not going to tell a Platonist they don't, that you're not really a Platonist because you can't prove it. No, it's just that we should probably strive for methodology, that we can, prove or falsify things. That's a more efficacious way to approach the world.
Yeah, and it doesn't work like that. I mean, figuring things out is hard and requires a lot of hard work. I mean, if it's not obvious information that everybody knows, and even that kind of thing is wrong sometimes. But if you want to figure out something that you don't already know, you have to spend a lot of time looking into it and doing the work and laying foundations. And theists really want to just short circuit that whole process and say, I don't really want to do any of that. I just want to say that when I came up with something about the way the world works, I want to tell you about it, and I want you to say, yeah, that makes sense. And just, and I can know things because I dreamed that an angel gave me some golden tablets that said it, to pick an example.
Oh, that is the most charitable version of that story I've ever heard, Russell.
But I mean, it's a lazy way of trying to approach knowledge. And
so Joe, next time you call in, I would love to figure out how these kind of discoveries are shifting your views, because you're still identifying yourself as not an atheist, and I would love to kind of talk about that. I know it can be weird, but it's a journey that I feel like a lot of people are on, and talking to you about how you're interacting with that, I think could be beneficial for a lot of people who might feel like they're doing it alone. I know we don't have enough time today, but would you call back in the future and we can kind of discuss that?
Sure. I'll see what I can do.
Sounds good. Joe, thank you for calling in.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
I know, right? Nice callers for them, right?
Yeah. Although, I mean, I can see the call screens, and they're not all like that.
No. So I'm wondering how many demonetized clips I want to put out. V, I know you're watching this. Shoot me a message and let me know. In the meantime.
Yeah, and I'll just say I am okay with getting through the entire show without somebody calling me, somebody who loves baby murders or whatever they're gonna say about me. So
yeah,
I'll leave it to you, but I don't feel like that that will make the experience any better.
Fair enough. Well, we do have somebody who's called in pretty regularly. I don't know if you've
There's
seen.
one thing that is not annoying at all. It's transcendental arguments.
Oh, good. All right. Then with
That's who you were going for, right?
Oh, I totally am. I
Yep.
totally am.
All right.
For
Well.
people who regularly watch, they're going to know Xeno. Xeno's in South Korea and wants to talk about the transcendental argument for the existence of God. Xeno, how's it going?
Right.
I knew you were going to pick me, Eric. I knew it.
You
Whenever
did?
you said that.
Was it?
Wow.
Did you just intuit it? Was there a transcendental quality?
There was another word for it would be transrationality. So, in a way, sure. But
I'm
yeah, let's
sure
get
we
to
can
it.
cram some more syllables in and make it more plausible.
All right. So
Could it be trans hyper rationality? Or
Well, if you give me the definition, probably, because I don't know what that means.
okay.
So I'm gonna Xeno. You know that you can call in and talk to me, but Russell's.
Yeah, I know.
So I want to give you guys the chance to talk about it. Xeno, do you want to provide your argument?
Thanks for the favor.
Yeah,
I'll
I
pick
really want to talk to Russell. He's a software engineer, and that's very exciting because I'm a programmer.
Oh, what do you? What language do you work on?
I work.
Honestly,
with
I'd rather geek out about that. What?
C++, Ruby. I also code on Unreal Engine, just using like nodes.
Oh yeah, I picked up Unity during the pandemic, and I was super into my Valve Index, so I figured out how to write some VR little games.
That's where you've been the
fun.
last 4 years.
Yeah.
You've been in VR.
lost in cyberspace. so.
Okay, fair. Sorry, go on.
I've been learning how to make a program that creates objects within its space, so kind of like machine learning.
Okay.
And I don't want to make it look too obvious, so when the person plays the game, they think they're dealing with an area that I created and made the environments for, but AI was able to create the environments for them.
So you generated sort of like a game with a generated dungeon or something.
Yeah, it's basically a generative dungeon. And
Okay.
I tested my friends out to ask them to see, like, how do you like this design? And they said, we love it. But I said, I didn't make it. Yeah. But I did make it, but I didn't make it because it's generative. So it's kind of like unique because there's so many different traits.
I mean, if you generate the rules, the rule set, one of the projects I did was like, I was a little rusty, but I looked up random maze algorithms. And then while I was learning Unity, I made a maze and then built it out of like cube objects that I put in the world. And then I dropped myself into it in VR. It was pretty cool.
Okay, so I want to get to it before we end up nerding out about that.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty awesome.
Transcendental.
So all right, so I'm going to circle this back to my argument. So in life, I'm kind of coming at this from a programmer perspective. So there are so many things that science can't answer so many different questions. Like what happened? Where does consciousness even come from?
Okay.
What is the nature
I
of
wouldn't
dark
say
matter?
it can't answer that, but I would say it's a very complicated problem that it hasn't answered.
I disagree. But anyway, no, go ahead. Yeah, I think that we have a very clear idea of what consciousness is.
Sorry to misword that a little bit. I mean, science probably will answer it, but we definitely can't answer it right now.
Maybe. Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't have all the information. So coming from this as a programmer, I feel that if we don't have all the information about something, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be wrong about it. So I just want to ask a question.
That's a little
I know, Eric,
strong.
I know your position. As an atheist, are you... I'm sorry?
I mean, I wouldn't say that 9 times out of 10 you don't have information to say things. I mean, I feel like if I say the sun is going to, if I quote the Annie musical, the sun will come up tomorrow, I think I have pretty good reason to be confident about that prediction.
But that's not like saying where does consciousness come from, because you could observe the sun and
I would also say that in general, the harder a concept is, the less likely you're just to randomly stumble on the answer. And so I think you're right that it's going to be pretty tough to come up with a solution to a general solution to consciousness.
Yeah, and that's just a very small aspect of the universe. There are so many other questions like, what is the nature of dark matter? And do you think we have the answer to that question? Or do you think we will ever be able to answer where does the nature of dark matter come from?
Yeah. I mean, I haven't read all that much about dark matter personally.
I got to say really quickly, just kind of interjecting, Xeno, every time I've had an argument where somebody says science doesn't know X, and then they harp on about science not knowing a thing, science not like a thing being unknown is not evidence of a claim. So if you're trying to like back your way into making a claim and trying to rest it in the nest of science not knowing things, or science not knowing is not even using the right words there, because science is a methodology. Science doesn't know shit. Science is a way that we use to learn about things. And so has science been used to learn about things? Well, we haven't really gotten to the full conclusion. I just don't think that that's evidence for any claims. The evidence for a claim is what we are able to investigate and what we're able to evaluate, that evidence for. So I'm curious why you're talking about, us not knowing things in your argument, because that's a red flag for me.
I disagree, of course, with what you're saying.
How so?
The negation, that's why we're here. So the negation of evidence, right? There's no evidence for X, means we need to explore this area, which we're doing with science. When I say there's a house somewhere in California that you haven't explored, we can't then make conclusions about that because you've never been.
Hang on, let me check Zillow.
Yeah. Well, I actually,
I will say it's gotten easier to explore things that are within reach, thanks to the internet, which is both a blessing and a curse.
That might not have been analogous to what I was saying.
But
the point is that science hasn't gotten there yet. The reason I say that is because we need to lay out how much gray area there is, or black area, whatever color you like to choose. And we need to understand there's so many possibilities in this area that we don't understand. So everything you're saying about what you don't understand could be complete nonsense.
Okay.
Simply because you don't understand it.
Well, actually,
so you're talking about question marks.
Actually, let's investigate this. If I were to say that, Xeno, have you explored every square inch of this Earth?
No.
Are you confident, right? If you don't know, and I told you that, Xeno, there is a house-sized black hole in a remote jungle location on Earth.
Or hell, in California, suburbs.
Sure,
somewhere.
Why not? Yeah. You haven't explored it, but if I said that there was a house-sized black hole, is that likely?
No, but the example doesn't work because we know black holes don't occur on Earth.
Oh,
we just know that.
Hold on.
So, on Earth.
You're absolutely right. So we can, through inference, understand some key elements of things, even if we haven't explored them. If we're talking about Earth, we can make, conclusions about simple physics, right? I can make conclusions about simple physics.
The universe, because that's very tiny compared to the universe. So I don't think the example works because you're using Earth, which is a pale blue dot, versus the universe being like maybe another pale something dot.
But the Earth is a subset of the universe that we're extremely familiar with. So I mean, it's not true to say that it's not analogous to the universe. I just would say it doesn't encompass everything.
Yeah, if we're going to go with that, then what I would say is that the conditions of things that we understand about the universe around us can give us information that we can use to infer information to infer things about, you know, places that we have not yet explored, because there are some things that just are that way. You know,
I agree. I do agree with that.
Like, do you think that there's somewhere vast, far away, you know, somewhere in the universe that light moves at the speed of molasses? I'm not talking. I'm not talking about through a wire. I'm talking Russell. I know that's where your brain went.
Actually, that wasn't what I was thinking. I was trying to come up with a quip about being stuck in traffic or something.
Yeah, is there? Do you think that there could be a place in the universe where light doesn't travel at the speed of light?
Yeah, as a programmer, dude, that question.
As a programmer, Russell,
so profound.
As a programmer, is that profound to you?
I know that I'm absolutely not a person who's qualified to talk about the speed of light.
Yeah, but as a programmer, don't you find it profound?
As a lay person who reads about
there's
it,
a place where light is probably frozen somewhere.
You're sure? See, now that's the point where you and I part company, because you said, because I mean, earlier on you said that if you believe something 9 times out of 10, you're going to be wrong.
And
so I'm wrong.
But I mean, like, to try to take these things that we don't know and then say, I mean, you just did the opposite of what it seemed like you were going to say, which is basically, but I know that there are exceptions to the speed of light, which doesn't seem to jive with what you were.
But like,
those aren't theories.
I could definitely be wrong.
That's right, not theories.
I know you guys got to go to other callers. Let me just say that I guess my problem is I'm trying to figure out how we are able to draw a conclusion without all of the information. I know that you spoke on that earlier. You said that, you know, if we don't have all the evidence or information to something, you know, to draw a conclusion would be sort of ridiculous. It's true, but I don't know your position. So before I hang up, is it that you don't know? Like, if someone asks you if a God exists, is your answer, I don't know, and we'll just wait and find out to see how many answers we get?
Yeah, although I think more than most people here, my answer these days is more, I don't care.
Okay.
But I know that's not as, I mean, you know, but I'm on an atheist show, so for the moment I'll care.
This is what I wanted to say. This is what I wanted to say. If your answer is, I don't know, as a software engineer, I brought you into a job, and I said, we have a problem. We need to create some type of parallax effect,
right,
where your character is able to create a doppelganger of itself. Okay, can you do that? If everyone's response is, I don't know, then we're not getting the job done. So it's important to know how to do certain things. If you say, I don't know, then most likely we're not going to hire you for the job, right? So we need people that know how to do these things. We need experts, right?
In that case, then don't hire me. But I mean, I will also say that,
so you're not qualified.
I mean, I may not be qualified, but also a lot of the time in meetings with people who aren't going to do the engineering, it's often my job to look at a problem and say, look, this can be done, but it's going to take 3 times as long and cost 3 times as much as you're actually thinking it will. So with that in mind, do you still want me to try to do that, or would you like to short circuit that? Now, where am I going with this? I forgot.
I'm just showing how I don't know. I don't know it's not a useful answer.
Actually, Xeno,
often it is a useful answer, though.
No, it's an honest answer, but it's not useful to the company.
Okay, Xeno. Actually, I'm going to stop that right there. Okay. I actually just got hired on for my dream job, and believe it or not,
congratulations.
Thank you. I'll tell you about it after the show.
I'll ask you later.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I really don't want to dox my new job, so I'm not going to give more info about that. But what I am going to say is that the environment is one where they absolutely encourage people to say, I don't know, because that means that you know at least which way to go, which way to work, which way to learn. If you are in a work environment in particular where I don't know is discouraged or somehow would leave you left out, then what you're left with is an environment where people are incentivized to say that they know what's going on even when they don't. And that is what's going to really cause damage in the future. I think that what you're describing is a toxic work environment, that it is incredibly useful and incredibly beneficial for everyone involved, for someone who doesn't know to say, I don't know, especially and as quickly as possible, so that you can work as a team to get that done.
Right. Being effective at a job doesn't always mean just blindly saying yes to whatever the boss says. It often involves giving accurate information about how doable it is.
No, not when you're training. I'm talking about 10, 20 years into the company. If you don't know, say you don't know.
I mean, as a company, right? I have a company and I go and screen lots of people. If I ask them, hey, do you know how to perform X? And they say, I don't know. We don't immediately just write them off and say, okay, goodbye, hit the road. But compared to someone that says they do know how to handle X, that's great. It's not looked down upon because you don't know. What I'm just saying, it's not efficient to hire a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, which is why we put people through college.
Yeah, but you also have to keep in mind that as the hiring manager, if a lot of people are telling you, I don't know how to do that thing, and frankly, I think that's not a good idea to attempt, sometimes you should listen to them. Not always, but...
Question for both of you.
I'm not encouraging people to not learn because they don't know something.
Xeno, question. I got a question for both of you, then I'm going to let you go, okay?
Okay.
What does this have to do with the transcendental argument? Where did we get so far off the trail that we're here? Because I have no idea where we are.
You and I both tend to jump on little things and derail the conversation, which is a hazard.
We have lost.
I lost all of my notes.
We have lost the lead, Xeno. We are so far out in the weeds. It is amazing. But you're welcome to call in again. I'm glad that you called in today.
Okay, awesome. I'll talk to you guys again.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
Although, honestly, talking about programming and interviewing strategies is more fun for me. So I'm good with the way that went.
Well, you know, I think that when something wild happens or when you're way off in the weeds, better to hang a lantern on it, bring it up and go, hey, I'm going to endeavor to do better in the future. What is the point of us, trying to be exemplars of how to have these conversations if we're not willing to admit, oh shit, I am way off target? It's important. It's important to be able to do, it's humbling, and we're just two assholes on the internet.
Yes, especially me.
Oh, I think you're awesome, Russell. All right, we have time for one more caller. Who do you want to take?
Shoot, I haven't read these.
You haven't read them?
Tell me who you think we should take.
Well,
Atlantis. Terminated. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. How about the big five of truth judgment? Sounds like I think that's something that we're going to need more time for. So Stephen, call back. In the meantime, we're going to take David in North Carolina.
What's up, David?
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good. Look at that. I have a lower third made for you already. Thank you for calling in. So it says in the notes you want to talk about the functional truth of magical practices. What the hell is that?
Well,
pick a card.
I don't want to be. I'll put forth, I guess, a good, possibly true self-criticism from the get. I suppose I'll be endeavoring the realm of apologetics, of rationalizing magical practices, but I don't really see that as a modern or new thing. I was raised in Advaita Vedanta, one of the most ancient religious traditions in the world, and it's always been atheist.
Can I have a specific example of a magical practice before we get into it?
Okay, sure.
Because I don't even necessarily know what you're talking about in that topic.
This is for
so just like some detail of something you did lately that falls in that category.
No. I don't practice magic. I mean, I study various things people might call that, but
what?
I'm not a. Well, I mean, I could use a lot of more easily accessible, relatable examples, but I don't think that would actually serve us well. Instead, I'd like to.
But I'm asking for one.
Voodoo.
Right, you're not hearing me, sir. I'm not looking for I am looking to serve the conversation and serve what you asked, But I think that a more extreme magical practice would serve us better here,
Okay.
instead of just astrology.
So
what?
Voodoo and the Chavot.
voodoo.
Okay, I need something more than a general word. Like, do you make dolls and poke them with pins?
I know. I was continuing to speak about it, but
Okay, sorry,
you're
go
trying
on.
to cut me off and make it look small. All right. So the Chavot, it's a trans mediumship that many, I think culturally, but they develop in childhood. And I had to, when analyzing it, really ask myself the question. Now, I might need to caveat this afterwards. How much do I believe in the effects of dissociative identity disorder?
Let's say I don't know what any of those words mean. What are you talking about?
Multiple personality disorder is the old term for DID.
Okay, I think that's a real thing, although I couldn't be sure.
It is.
Okay.
It is. So I when analyzing the channeling of the Loa, I'd ask myself,
Don't know what that means.
How much do I validate the claimed cognitive separation of people with dissociative disorder?
Got it. Can I try and restate that to you?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying is just an allusion to the idea that a whole lot of mystical practices are rooting in a misunderstanding of mental health issues. That
no, mental health issues demand dysfunctionality. We have many exotic states of consciousness that are not necessarily maladaptive health.
Well, true. One example that I would bring up is native treatment of non-binary genders. That has been something that we've seen in history throughout human history. That's just a thing that's not maladaptive. But when we're specifically talking about supernatural practices, what is a non-maladaptive root of a spiritual?
I don't look for supernatural.
Okay.
I look for preternatural things that are actually real and functional, but might seem like magic. There's that. I love that saying from Westworld. Everything in the world is magic, except to the magician.
Which character said that? I'm trying to remember.
Was it Bernard?
Ford.
Oh.
No, Ford
the scumbag of the. Wait, no. Was that Ed Harris?
No. Ford is Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, yes. I have no idea where we're going with this, David.
Sorry.
No. What's going on? I'm lost.
Combo. I don't know if we can get very far with it, but I'm glad to have had a little time in chatting with you guys.
I feel like I have no idea where we went.
Yeah, I asked for like a specific example of what a magical practice is, and you said a lot of big words like maladaptive and
We're adults. That's not a big word. You're not a teenager, sir.
No, I know what maladaptive means, but I don't understand by like what you were getting at with any particular thing, which is why I was wondering what's an example of a thing you could do that's a magical practice?
Well, a thing that people do that would be dubbed a magical practice that I was referencing is that voodoo practitioners or people that are raised in the culture, I think, I don't want to make the claim that you could like discover this about yourself and have no exposure to it. I don't think that's reasonable, but that children start channeling the Loa as children.
What does channeling the Loa mean? What do they do that looks like channeling a Loa?
Yeah. Okay, so
I'm not saying I haven't heard any of these words before. I'm just saying.
Right, there's an audience
what is
to
it?
think about too, and I want to be unaccessible.
Yeah, like a trance, like a spiritual trance, possibly.
Yeah, and okay, in the most basic sense, it's spirit channeling or God's channeling. I mean, some of the Loa that are channeled are like Jesus and Mary.
So they're going into a trance, so they're like sitting there closing their eyes.
Kind of like turn of the century mediums.
And then the magical practice is that Jesus actually shows up somehow.
Or that like a spirit enters their body, maybe?
Enters the...
Well, the cosmological concepts behind it is that they're their personage, their personality spirit conforms to the personality spirit of the Loa. To me, that sounds very much like just...
So going back to
expressing
Westworld, I mean, Anthony Hopkins, like, channeled being this Ford guy who invented all the robots on Westworld, right? And he's very convincing with this personality that is probably nothing like the way Anthony Hopkins acts in real life. Would you say that him doing acting is a magical practice?
No, but we get to my statement about DID. Is the person that experiences
multiple personalities.
Dissociative identity disorder.
All right.
How much of that am I willing to call faking, or how much of it am I willing to say is real in some way?
I wouldn't.
For me, I wouldn't necessarily call it either faking or real in some way.
The idea of calling somebody out as faking that is weird and awful to me.
People can believe things that are not true without intentionally trying to deceive somebody else.
The DID will tell you that the personas are not faking, and that they have real memory blocks that divide the personalities and their development.
Okay, so what do you think is this functional truth before we move on?
I'm sorry, I heard you, but could you say it again, please?
Dude, the fact that you're asking me to repeat myself is the least you can do, considering how offbeat I've been on several of the calls. David, you're good. So
it's me being here, which is
no, Russell. Don't
spoiling your ability to concentrate.
No. As a programmer,
yes.
David. I feel like I at least want to hear from you. You wanted to talk about a functional truth here, and we never got the chance to engage with it. And so, if anything, at least the people in the comments can get to engage with it, and maybe we can engage with those ideas later. So I want you to get the chance to, what's the core of this thesis?
Well, if I was going to say a functional truth with the example that I'm using is that they, the Voodoo Hogans and Mumbos and Bokor, they certainly developed some kind of incredible pharmacology in just 30 years of being on the island with new everything, and came up with psychoactive powders that among the I don't know if you've seen the movie Serpent or read the book Serpent in the Rainbow.
Nope.
But it's quite an incredible. It puts you.
No worries, it's okay.
Into a deep state, and they such a state that they'll spend a few days buried in a box, being believed dead.
That sounds awful.
In the sense that their brain isn't rotting, and if they don't die of deoxygenation, they may come back.
So what's the fundamental truth of this?
So they are doing things that are putting them in a super uncomfortable state, but not killing them. That doesn't seem magical to me.
That has incredible effects with no lab.
Oh, I think I got the core of that. So what you're saying is that the functional truth of it is that we can convince ourselves of things and kind of, to some degree, have it influence our reality.
And taking drugs makes it easier.
Yeah? Is that where we're at?
I'm talking about the advent of the drugs. How did they come up with the drug with no labs in incredibly short time with no scientific method?
I mean...
people lick toads. It's not like... it's not like every drug gets developed with like complete knowledge of chemical composition.
Yeah, I mean, go to a prison, you're going to see a whole lot of bathtub hooch or, toilet wine. Like, leave people alone long enough, they're going to figure out how to trip balls somehow.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In 30 years, they found the hidden little liver piece of an otherwise completely toxic fish, figured out how to pull it out, then powderize it, then alkylate it, and then mix it with a bunch of other things I don't think have any effect, and all that within 30 years of being moved to the island.
Is that the functional truth, that at some point we are going to figure out how to trip balls? Because if that's the case, I'm behind it.
And I'm boring, so...
Russell, why are you so mean to yourself? Russell, be nice to my friend. Russell is my friend, and he doesn't deserve that shit, okay? Be nice to my friend.
All right,
Fine.
I'm just saying I don't do a lot of drugs, but I'm not too judgmental about it.
Fair. Okay, I didn't let you finish. I'm sorry. David,
And that's why I'm boring, is the point.
you're good. David,
Good combo.
I wish we had the time to have a more productive one, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. People in the comments, let us know what you think and how we could move forward in a conversation like this. In the meantime, David, thank you for calling.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this was a blast.
Oh, we've got a little bit more to go.
Oh, how long is the show?
Well, we're supposed to go in 1 minute.
Oh,
but
see, I was right to say that.
for sure. But we have a whole lot of super chats because this video is absolutely getting demonetized.
Yep.
There are a number of people who hopped in and sent us super chats to try and kind of offset
yay.
that, which is really, really nice. And so I kind of want to read them. And I wanted to. Would you take turns with me?
All right.
Okay. This might.
I've got to read the second one, so.
Okay, you know what? And I'll move this over to your side.
All
It's
right.
a little easier. So Gramdoff sent $10. Thank you, Gramdoff. Says, love the show. Missed you, Russell. XOXO.
Thanks, Graham. SM Field says, I just want to hear Russell say, shit, internet apologists say.
Hey.
Thank you.
Which is a product that is owned by another company. Russell being able to say those words is absolutely his prerogative to say. He is not, and we
don't remember signing the rights to every turn of phrase I had, but
yeah, true enough. Skeptic Generation does not. Anyway, Empress Lizard sent $50. Empress Lizard, thank you. That's really sweet. Says thanks for the rant, Russell, and a heart. See that, dude?
Thanks for listening to me rant.
Yes, super chat and say nice things to Russell so he'll come back.
Zhang has a meme of a little dancing blob that says, you are amazing, and then confetti all over the place.
John Klein sent, and Viper Zhang sent $20. Thank you. John Klein sent 10 and says, hello, Russell, we all miss you. Thank you for being here today. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Lucas Black says, this video is going to be demonetized and it's worth it. Quoting you, this is one more thing that makes this channel worthy of watching.
Aww.
It sure is. Watch more.
Thank you. That makes my heart happy. Amit Matthew sent $10 and says, would you say something like the Church of Prismatic Light plays the role of the Satanic Temple without the trolliness?
Okay, if you want.
Sure.
So, the Church of Prismatic Light plays the role of the Satanic Temple without the trolliness.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They asked me to say it, I said
Sure.
it.
Have you heard of the Church of Prismatic Light?
No, I don't want to.
Actually, it's
okay, later.
Yeah, no. I think you'd dig it.
All right. Russell, I love you so much, says Cameron Jensen. I may be fangirling from back in the day, but I love you. Please come back to us regularly.
Yeah, Russell.
Okay.
First, a little background about myself. Sent $10. Thank you. It says, miss you, Russell.
Zhang says, according to a Norse god, magic is just science we don't yet understand.
Yeah, I mean, I can get on with that quote. Sarah Dye sent $10 and sent some hearts and says, so happy to see Russell. Me too.
Thanks.
Me too.
I guess, so now that the show's over, basically, without being a spokesperson, I will plug a project I did because I like to brag on my work. If you go right now to the website, blizzard.com, it got completely remade from the ground up this year by me. So if you enjoy the cool animations and little hover effects and things that are on the site, first thank the designer who did all the graphics, and then thank me because it was a really neat project that was very technologically complicated and fun for me to do. Blizzard.com. Don't post that in the show notes because I'm not a spokesman.
Won't do. That said, knowing you personally, the intense amount of pride and joy that your work brings you is something that I'm really, really happy for. I want that for you.
Thanks.
I'm really glad that you have that.
And I hope you are professionally fulfilled as well.
Dude, I'm going to tell you after we finish, I'm going to tell you all about it. Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, thank you all for joining us.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Until next time. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to cue the outro. Okay, you ready?
Yes, but
We're
I
glad
forgot.
we had this talk.
Thank you.
No problem. Until next time, we're
We're glad we had this talk.